My name is Jason Ho. I'm an associate professor of nuclear engineering at NC State. My another hat I'm wearing is I'm the interim director of the nuclear reactor program. The question we're trying to answer, right, in my research and teaching really is how to accelerate the deployment of nuclear energy, and to help us to solve a lot of the grand challenges. For example, the climate change, because we need electricity, we need energy for other purposes. Now with the rise of the AI and the energy-hungry data center, we need to think about where the electricity or energy coming from. But the question is, how do we build nuclear reactors quickly enough and operate them safely enough, and to minimize their any potential environmental impact, as much as possible. So these are the questions we're trying to answer in my research and teaching. At this moment, when we talk about nuclear energy, we mainly talk about fission energy. It is the energy generated by splitting large atoms like uranium-235. And this process is very powerful. A large amount of energy is coming from this process, the fission process. I can give you an example. A small fuel pellet about this size, like a gummy bear, will generate the same amount of energy as burning a ton of high quantity coal. The power density, right, in nuclear fuel is much, much higher. So that essentially meets our need for the growth of economy, and to meet the need of the emerging technologies. I mean, the second aspect of that is nuclear is clean. And so compared with the burning coal or natural gas or oil, the amount of waste is really small and is easy to manage. So I think from the energy production perspective, from the minimizing the waste perspective, nuclear energy or the fission power offers the best solution, at least at this moment. Fulbright is something I learned in the early years when I came, pretty much right after I came to NC State. And I decided, okay, I want to be a Fulbright scholar one day. I thought the time was right, and I decided to apply. And I actually got a lot of help and support from our community here at NC State. The purpose of the Fulbright experience for myself is really to advance our knowledge in advanced reactors, how they can help us, how we should go about deploying those advanced reactors. I think Fulbright community is first of all a very large community. As you know, Fulbright program is actually our two-way traffic. There are U.S. scholars, students come abroad, and other people come into the U.S. And they share a lot of interesting stories, personal, professional, and really helped me understand how this network connect people together, right? And that's the fundamental goal of this program, is to really increase the understanding of people, of the U.S. and the people from other countries. And I really appreciate that, perspective, not only because I have an opportunity to interact with Italian citizens over there, but also to kind of give them a perspective of our country, our culture, right? And then that has been really great. Italy has offered so much talent in the field of nuclear energy. And then so because of this opportunity in Fulbright, I got to work with them, in person very closely. With that collaboration, I still continue working with them. And actually, it creates more opportunities for us to collaborate. So for example, I started an exchange program between NC State and my host university, which is Politecnico di Milano in Italy, for nuclear engineering graduate students to visit each other and to spend a few months in the other institution and to actually learn from each other and to promote their research. I chose Italy because I grew up fascinating about history, and also I grew up as a super soccer fan. And so since I was very young, I started reading about history, and there is a, very interesting connection between China, where I was born, and Italy, right? These two countries kind of serve as the two ends of the Silk Road, okay? And then that's pretty much the channel of the commodity and culture exchange in between Europe and East Asia. And so from young age, I grow this fascination about this country. And also, like I said, I grew up as a soccer fan. I still play soccer today. And I happen to really love Italian soccer, or football, as they call it over there. And I always want to be close to that culture and to that environment. The sentiment of nuclear energy in Italy is quite, I want to say, polarized. So there have been a lot of discussions, there have been a lot of movements inside Italy. And Italy used to have nuclear industry. It used to have 4 nuclear reactors, but they were all shut down because of the anti-nuclear movement. But of course, now we're living a different time, and the technology has advanced so much. And so I think it is the right time to talk about nuclear again. And that's actually one of the reasons I picked Italy, because Italy is the right place to talk about nuclear and to promote nuclear at this time. Professor Stefano Lorenzi is my host. He invited me to Politecnico di Milano. He's an associate professor there in the nuclear engineering program, and his research interest is very similar to mine. Right? So we both work on nuclear reactor design and analysis. We both leverage on high fidelity modeling and simulation tools. And so naturally, there's a lot of opportunity for us to collaborate. Professor Lorenzi's group has done a tremendous job in developing open source software to analyze nuclear reactors. I spent many hours with him and with his students learning the tools and the capabilities they developed over there. And actually, I'm going to adopt them. I'm actually adopting them in my research at NC State. Open source software or tools are very helpful in the sense that it creates opportunities for everyone to contribute to the tool. You're able to build a much better product in a much efficient way, right? So it's the same for nuclear. And we want the tool to be very powerful, efficient, accurate. When you open up your door and invite people to work with you, you make that happen very quickly. So my primary research project at Politecnico di Milano is to develop a full-scale power plant simulator for advanced nuclear reactors. It helps to break the myth of nuclear because a lot of people feel it's very mysterious. It's sometimes scary. We want to educate general public about nuclear, but without actually the right tools, it's difficult to deliver the message. You can't just give them a textbook and go read, right? You need to find the right way to communicate. A simulator or a simulating environment is really the right way to show how nuclear works, how nuclear power works, and what it is like to operate a nuclear reactor. I think the most valuable aspect of my research exchange is to really learn from my colleagues from Polimi, especially Professor Lorenzi's group, about their development and implementation of different methods on the open source platform. It creates a lot of opportunity for other people to contribute to the field and to that product and advance it in the pace that we couldn't otherwise. While I was at Polimi, I've had an opportunity to visit 2 nuclear facilities. One is in University of Pavia, which is very close to Milan. The other is in Ljubljana, Slovenia, which is 4 or 5 hours drive from Milan. I had this opportunity because the graduate students in the nuclear engineering program need to conduct research and experiments using those facilities. We have a nuclear reactor on campus at NC State, so that really is a great resource for research and education. Our students can actually really enjoy seeing the reactor, anytime they want, pretty much. And that helps me to prepare my, daily job here at the nuclear reactor program. And because I can think about, okay, what I've seen over there, what I can learn from them and adopt it to our reactor program. I'm always very grateful of the fact that NC State has not only the oldest, university-owned research reactor, but it's still working and functioning perfectly, almost perfectly to this day, which allows us, the researchers, the professors, but also most importantly, the students, to actually experience it. This is not something that you can get everywhere. NC State is a truly unique place because of that. We have learned so much from my colleagues at Politecnico about their use of open source software, their capabilities. We have adopted some of them in our research. And also, more importantly, it opens doors, broadens our view, of how we treat our research, how we share our research. I think in nuclear industry or nuclear engineering field, for historical reasons, there's always a conservatism, in that field. We always have more than necessary protective layers around our product. A lot of this may not be necessary. My experience during my visit to Politecnico really make me rethink, how we should protect our IP, but at the same time, embrace collaboration and really allow others to come in and work with us and contribute to the field, and actually helps everyone. Yeah. To my colleagues here at NC State who may have doubts about the Fulbright experience, I want to say, it is great. It has been maybe the most rewarding experience for me professionally. And so we have a lot of resources on campus, and they are all very, very supportive. They're very helpful. I cannot thank them enough for their assistance, for their support, which make my dream become true. And in return, I'm helping them, I'm helping the new applicants to the Fulbright program to kind of shape their application, to answer the questions they have about the program, about living abroad. And so hopefully we will see more and more Fulbright scholars from NC State, because, this is not only personal experience, cultural exchange. It's really also about sharing research, sharing, NC State with other people, with people from other countries. So I think it is going to be great if we can all work together and to help each other in this process. I would define global learning as extending your boundary. There's a saying of, my boundary of language is my boundary of knowledge. I can say that similar way, my boundary of culture is the boundary of knowledge. So really, global learning is about learning about culture, learning about different way of thinking. When you approach the problem differently, from different angle, from different perspective, it potentially give you a tool to solve a problem that you cannot do from your old way, from your old perspective. So I think global learning is really about expanding your view, listening to stories of others, and to learn from the lessons from other people, and to effectively help you solve your own problem, and then advance your research. So to me, really it's about how far you can go to push your boundaries.